All right, man. Well, we just had a great conversation.
Yes.
That was so nice. We're going to answer some listener questions.
Let's do it.
We've done this before. Yeah. We were doing this for a while.
Virtually.
Virtually, yeah. Better in person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Flew all the way from Czech Republic for this.
Let's go.
To help you guys. Let's do this thing.
Yeah, let's go, man. All the way from the Czech. We got the man, the myth, the legend. Okay, question number 1 is, how can I retrain my mind to stop interpreting everything around me as a trigger, even when it's not sexual in nature? So I'll actually just kick this off with there's some neuroscience behind this. So this is called sensitization, which is when your brain is interpreting things or converting things, somehow it associates things that are not sexual with a sexual arousal for whatever reason. Like for me, it was actually this back in the day, like this kind of thing on my desk would have been incredibly triggering. Nothing sexual about it. But just that association with, this is what it looks like when I watch porn, when my relapses start. So he's asking, how do I retrain my mind? He's obviously seen things around him that are not sexual, but they're triggering him. What advice would you give him?
One of the things I start with guys is to label what feels true and what is true. And that often gets them going down the trail of realizing the feelings they have or the conditionings they have are that's what it actually is. Yeah. So if it would be, it feels like masturbation is comforting. What is actually true? Every time I do it, I feel shame. God actually made my body for so much more. And it's actually really cool when we define it like that, because it gives them a bigger perspective. Yeah. And that starts to recondition their mind of like, when I start to believe that masturbation feels comforting, I actually now see what's going on is I'm living in this old way of thinking. I'm living in the inner child, or I'm living in a way like that's the addictive brain. I don't want to live in that anymore. I see what it is, almost like scripture saying the old man. Yeah. So like that idea of renewing the mind or reconditioning the mind is what is true is that the last time I watched porn and masturbated, I felt shame and I slept poorly. What is true is the last time that I didn't masturbate, I actually felt real comfort for the first time. Yeah. So the lie is that it's comforting. The truth is that it was more comforting not to do it. Yes. And the more we are diligent to agree with what's true, we naturally recondition ourselves, we renew the mind, and we're living in that new man idea. That's been really cool, because it's helped guys just have a really cool template of what feels true right now. Oh yeah, it feels like masturbation would help me sleep. But what is true? I never actually sleep very well because I feel so much shame. This is what's true about God, is he actually made me to be on purpose. Or whatever it might be. So that's been a really cool exercise. Yes. There's other things that I could obviously say, but like that one's really cool because it's a bit different than what a lot of guys are doing. Yes. Yeah. I'm going to give a bit of a broader response to this. I think it's interesting. I've observed this in the questions that come in a lot. Guys are diagnosing their problem and it's not actually the problem. And the problem with that is you never end up with an effective solution if you've misdiagnosed the problem, no matter how greatly you've misdiagnosed it. So I think, I don't know that if you're dealing with sensitization of the brain where you're looking at things that aren't sexual, but they're triggering you anyway, I think you do, like retraining the mind it's not inaccurate. It may not be the most helpful thing. The most helpful thing might be for you to actually just do some root work. Have a roots-based approach, build self-awareness, heal the heart, shift your identity. And I would say it's especially in building self-awareness and healing of the heart. That's where you start to notice this kind of sensitization going away, where you can look at the laptop sitting open on a desk and the response isn't the same. Because without that deeper transformation, I just don't know how much I think you're going to be more prone to like the gimmicks and the hacks, right? I like what you said. Like the ultimate thing is you have to live in truth. So that's 100% it. There's no other way around it, because we know you're transformed by the renewing of your mind, and the renewed mind is anchored in truth. So that's just the way it works. But I would just encourage this guy, Joe is his name. I would encourage Joe. I think, dude, I would take a step back. I would not stress out so much about the fact that everything's triggering you, even if it's not sexual. Let's just figure out what's underneath all of that and see what we can do. So even like putting those together, right? Like if something's feeling true like that, that type of woman symbolizes this, or is that, what is that revealing on a deeper level? So even what we have in like our second video of the program, it's like, what is that revealing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess maybe one other thing is we have to be careful with our language, because I have the benefit of being able to read this again.
Yeah.
How can I retrain my mind to stop interpreting everything around me as a trigger? And I think sometimes we get in our despair and discouragement, it's like, everything's a trigger. Dude, not everything's a trigger. But maybe there's more triggers than you'd like there to be. And maybe it's a little bit annoying that they're not even sexual and they're still triggering you, but not everything around you is triggering, right? We can kind of like get into this, we were talking about defeatism in the interview, right? We can like defeatism can just be, it can all of a sudden make a level 2 out of 10 thing feel like a level 12 out of 10 and everything around me is a trigger when it's not really true.
It's a big statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's where clarity is king. Like what you're saying, there's like that. That's what feels true.
Yes.
Like Elijah, right? Like I'm the only prophet around. Like, there's a lot of
7,000 other ones actually. Yeah.
So it's really important we have that perspective. But then, like you're saying, like what's the like when did that start? That sort of extreme defeat.
Yes.
Apathy, and is there some pain around that?
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. You need an inner child specialist to maybe tackle that. Yes. Question number 2. How can I move my emotional dependence from my wife to God when turning to him often feels empty, distant, or unrewarding? I so relate with that question. Not the specifics of it, but just like can I really turn to God to get all my needs met? Is that really a thing?
Yeah, so what I often will tell guys is that our lens of God is from our Father, primarily. And then our lens of sexuality and women is from our mother. So I'd always, somebody like that, I'd ask, like, tell me more about even like how you met your wife and what were some of the dynamics there, and is there some ties to how you were related to your mom? Was there some ties there where there's root pain that hasn't been healed and you actually became codependent with your wife? And that's actually just been an ongoing problem where you've never actually let the Lord into these places. Maybe now because you're watching porn or there's a rupture somewhere. Now it's just so obvious and painful, and turning to God just feels impossible now. So again, like it does go back to the root pain. Like, was there something in childhood where you actually never really felt safe with your dad and you never learned to be comforted by God? Was there something where you actually had to like help your mom feel better in a sense, where like that became like you were almost like a weatherman, so now you're like on guard for like if my wife's not in a good mood, like I have to be the God. So there's a lot there that I'll talk to guys about the root pain of like, why is that a problem? Because if we focus on the marriage, which obviously is important, but again, like we don't get to the root of the issue. Like a lot of marital problems are rooted in mother wounds for men. And then for women it's father wounds. And that's very common. And when guys talk to me about their marriage problems, I ask them, like, do we want to deal with the surface problem, which is important when there's an urgent issue,
of course,
or do we want to get to the root, which will inevitably help that surface problem? And it's not a quick road, it's not an easy road. So what he's posing is very difficult.
It is, but
that would be the first point that I would touch on. And then that would even expose, like, why does God seem that way when biblically he's not? Right? Where did that frame come from?
Very good point.
Was there a disappointment that you've never had an ability to talk to someone about? Do you have unforgiveness towards God because he didn't heal something or something bad happened? It just starts to expose all the bitterness.
That often we don't even realize is there. Like, it presents itself as he feels empty, distant. I'm not getting anything out of this, but there's a reason for it.
It's so painful.
I would say, again, just to offer some clarity for anybody who's on this journey, in our group coaching call last week, there were several guys on there who were dealing with or have dealt with enmeshment with their mother. And maybe not the same thing, although probably there's some of that underneath. Maybe if we were to dig in deeper with this guy, it'd be interesting to see. But what's for sure is if you're breaking out of emotional dependence of any kind, breaking out of enmeshment, you're guaranteed to go through a wilderness. Guaranteed, because enmeshment is Egypt, right? Enmeshment is Egypt. Codependence is Egypt. And you break out with courage because you know it's the right thing to do. And somewhere along the way, you're going to encounter the Red Sea, or you're going to encounter the wilderness and it's manna and it's quail and man, at least when we were back in Egypt, the food was better and we had a shirt on our backs and we weren't in the desert, scorching heat.
Yeah.
And you gotta find that way to keep going forward. So this also, I can kind of hear underneath the question a little bit is, I'm trying to do this, but God is distant. I can't connect with him. And it's just easier to kind of turn back and do what I'm doing before. So just to encourage this person that you might just need to push that threshold a little bit further because you may not be that far, but maybe you're just not quite continuing down this path long enough. And that will mean dealing with God feeling a little distant because obviously there's something going on there and you have to be willing to see it all the way through before you enter the promised land. But Canaan is there. It is there, And I think the other thing I would say, and this is where I would get, if I was getting a lot more tactical, is hearing God's voice. Hearing God's voice can be, I think it's the fastest way to get yourself out of the resentment, out of the bitterness, out of the disconnection. And inevitably, the person who asks this question hears that and says, but I can't hear God's voice. That's the problem. And I think that's where, again, what we were talking about in our conversation earlier, I think this is where slowing down, quieting down, not making this issue the centerpiece of your conversation with God, but just making connecting with him the centerpiece of your conversation with God. I'm here to connect. And God, if we can talk about this, great. But if I just get to connect with you, it's worth it. And I think hearing his voice is just the fastest way to do that.
It's the experience, right?
Yes.
There's a lot to be said about what Jesus said. Blessed the one who believes without seeing. But I think people form beliefs through experience. Like, we're not going to have Jesus in the flesh at church, but there's people that can represent Jesus in the flesh in a sense of his kindness and love. And if you go to church and you don't ever feel that, how are you really going to believe that the body of Christ could be a blessing? Right? So I think there's a lot to be said about, these experiences. And slowing down, we hear a lot of these things that people can do. I think those are great places to start. But like 2 Corinthians 1 talks about the God of all comfort. It's a really interesting passage because it says that those who suffer with Christ will be like all the more comforted. I'm kind of paraphrasing a little bit, but I think we have a poor theology of suffering. And it's in those moments that we can actually pour out our hearts of that. Like sometimes we don't do that, where it's like, Lord, I'm actually really bitter. That I don't connect with you. That I don't actually know what to do anymore. And in that is there some unforgiveness? Is there some repentance? Is there some things that we've actually become prideful? Like, I'm doing all the right things. Why aren't you speaking to me? Like, that's actually clearly a recipe for us not hearing God. So I think that would be something to consider as well. Like in pain, I think we can become very bitter. We can become very prideful, like prodigal son brother, doing all the right things. I've always been here. I've been a Christian all my life, and why aren't these things just happening? I think it's like when disappointment happens, I think that's when that creeps in the most. So when somebody like that tells me like I'm just not connecting or hearing from the Lord, I know in seasons where I've struggled with that, it's always pride. Always bitterness. Always a sense of, God, I know better than you do. And it's hard to say that when somebody's hurting. But God is the comforter of that hurt. And he's near to the brokenhearted, like it says in Psalm 34. I forget who said it, but I remember somebody saying that sometimes things are so dark because God is so near. As in, God is so big and he casts such a big shadow that it feels dark and we don't even realize he's right beside us. And it's dark because he's there. He's the shadow that's protecting us. He's near to the brokenhearted. And sometimes we interpret, the radio silence, or we interpret the darkness as God's left me, when actually he's right there. But he's just there with you. He's alongside you for the ride. It's like when Scripture says God hears our prayers, he'll answer, ask and he'll give it. I think sometimes God just says not yet. Or he says no. Or he says no. He does answer the prayer. But we just don't like the answer. Like that's really tough.
Yeah.
And like, he answered it, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
He really did.
It was a no.
Yeah.
Yeah. The silence was deafening. It was a no. Yeah.
And that's where guys say, like, God's been silent. It's
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't silent.
Yeah.
You just didn't like his answer.
Yeah.
And I've had to wrestle with that.
Yeah. It's a
Oh,
thing.
man.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I'm so prideful. So
Yeah.
That's something that we all really have to consider.
Yeah.
Really, if we want to be truly living biblically.
Yes.
God is going to say no.
Yeah.
He's going to say not yet.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's
Yes.
not him being silent. That's him just saying what we...
It's him. It's in his goodness.
Yeah.
Like, it's in his goodness. There's so many prayers I prayed that if he would have answered them, I'd be screwed.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I needed or what I wanted, but he did.
Yeah. I'm actually even just thinking right now, like, so I guess sometimes we use that language, right? If he answered them, but he did answer them.
Yeah.
And then we use that language in church a lot, though. But it's like he did answer them, but he didn't say yes.
Right.
But we use that, like in church, they'll say intimacy instead of sex.
Right.
We'll say answered prayers, as in it's yes.
Right.
Sometimes he does answer prayers, but it's a no.
True.
So it's interesting, right? We think about the language that
Yes.
we get hung up on.
Kind of the implication.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and because it's true. An answer could be a no.
Yeah.
And it's probably good for God to say no
I
to
say
some
no
of
to
the
my
stuff.
daughter often.
Yeah.
I'm answering her.
Yeah, with her best interest in mind.
Yes.
Not out of a place of being
Exactly.
manipulative or cold-hearted or anything like that.
It's like, I just know better.
Yeah, this is bad for you.
Yeah.
It's a no. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. God is a perfect father, man. It puts a lot of things in perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, next question here from Rory in Tennessee. Is it truly possible to reach a level of freedom where lust and temptation don't even cross your mind and you only have eyes for your wife? Yes, of course. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think they're kind of two different things. I think only having eyes for your wife is a lot different than not ever being tempted. Like, I think we've got the whole temptation thing so wrong. Like, our theology about that is way off because we try to pray away temptations. And as we talked about in our conversation earlier, not realizing that they're a gift.
Yes.
They have so much data and information. And if we lean into them a little bit, we can learn a lot about ourselves and get a much more effective solution to our recovery.
Yes.
That aside, Jesus was tempted in every way. So if Jesus is the standard and he was tempted in every way, I don't think it should be our goal to never be tempted. I really don't. I think definitely I will say I'm tempted a lot less. 9 years of freedom from pornography.
Yeah.
I am tempted way less. In fact, Shaloma was just asking me this weekend, she was like, so do you actually never... Like, you're actually never tempted to watch porn. We're in this is the probably the busiest, most stressed out season I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
It's been a lot. You know everything that's been going on in the business and with a couple clients. And then I've had lots of stuff at home and my wife's 31 weeks pregnant and my kid's 19 months old and crazy. And it's so much fun, but it's crazy, And she was like, are you real? Like, she's like, just asking like, I believe you, but like, are you sure? And I'm like, honestly, a couple years ago, a season like this definitely would have had the temptation, but I don't anymore.
Yeah.
So the temptations do change for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's really the goal because this week when I was at the gym, there was definitely somebody that I probably looked at a little bit too long.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't perfect, but I would still say I only have eyes for my wife.
Yes.
Like, it didn't go any further. There was no fantasy.
Yeah.
There was no like circling back later. Some of the stuff that I probably would have done in earlier years, even after I had quit pornography.
Yeah.
I really do believe I only have eyes for my wife. That deep, intimate sexual longing, I only have it for her.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely possible.
Yeah.
Not even possible. If you do the stuff that we talk about, it's probable.
Yeah.
Like this can be your reality, 100%.
Yeah, like the eyes are the gateway to the soul. So it's really important that we consider that.
Yeah.
Something really cool happened last week, and I was actually excited to tell Helena about it.
Okay.
So I was in the city. I don't have to go into detail. I was walking towards this one street, and I needed to go to the left.
Okay.
And I was thinking I would go left before crossing the road, but crossing the road made the route I was going on a little faster.
Okay.
Right when I crossed the road, this, like, from afar, this really attractive young mom walked right beside me and actually went in front of me. And it was such a cool moment because I know Shawn from 8 years ago, struggling with porn. That's like a MILF. a very attractive person. She's walking right in front of me. And she walked right in front of me. I was like, wow, what a beautiful woman. Like a mom. She had that baby. Like, that's incredible. Like, and just thinking about Helena being a mom. Like, my mind just went to that. And I walked past her. And 20 minutes later, she needed help carrying her stroller up some stairs. And I got to just, like, treat her like a human.
Yeah.
And help her.
Wow.
It was such a cool experience.
Yeah.
I was like kind of giddy after that. Not only did I get to have that experience of like just kind of honoring her.
Yes.
But I got to go help her.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like this awkward, like she's so attractive.
Yeah.
Oh, I was
be cool.
really thinking about it. It's like I saw her struggling.
Yeah.
And I walked up to her and I said, can I help you?
Yeah.
And it just felt so cool.
Yeah.
I just love
That's
those
amazing.
experiences.
That's amazing. I remember as someone in a men's ministry, this was a long time ago, but it really helped me. Was still struggling with porn at the time when I heard this, but he said, you should be able to go up to the most beautiful woman in church and have a conversation with her the same way you would with anyone else. He's like, that's actually healthy masculine. If we're really talking about sexual purity and freedom, that's actually what it looks like. It's such a healthy relationship with beauty that you appreciate it, you see it for what it is, and it's all in the context of they're a human being, not an object or anything else for your affection.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you're saying. Like the Czech Republic would be the exact arousal template of my addictive years. Like that type of woman, that like even that ethnicity, the country they would be from, it just had an arousal attached to it. So Czech has been a really sweet place for me to realize my integrity.
Yeah.
But there are temptations, of course.
Yeah.
But it's those moments of, sometimes you look too long or whatever, but it's the reminder of like, I know it's satisfying.
Yeah.
Helena is satisfying because God has given her to me.
Yeah.
I think that's like the mark of when something is tempting, it doesn't go into what I would say is like an integrity relapse. Like that's really important to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything else to really say to this, but I think it's definitely possible. But I think I just want to make sure that Rory, you understand like it's okay to be tempted as a married man. It's how you respond to that temptation that matters, right? That's what we're trying to illustrate here.
Yeah, we had a client recently have some arousal he was engaged, had some arousal towards somebody else that was just kind of an awkward scenario.
Yes.
And just through some conversations with him, we were talking about like what would help alleviate the shame of that arousal. And he I think he took like a week of just really deeply reflecting on it, and it led to him like figuring out like what's actually at the core of it. And she ended up sharing it with some really important people in his life and felt like a total release.
Yeah.
And I
was so impressed by that.
Yeah, you saw the message. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That was just so cool.
That was unreal.
Yeah.
Yeah, just that level of transparency with people that he definitely didn't have to share it with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very courageous.
Yep. And probably would have been advised by other people to not share it with those people. And
because I asked him, I said, have you shared it with your fiance? And he said, no, I don't think I could do that.
Yeah.
I kind of was like, are you sure? Like, it sounds like that would be important.
Yeah.
It was so cool to see him decide on his own.
Yeah.
Instead of me telling you have to.
Yes.
Like,
and she responded so well, right? She appreciated
really
the transparency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's a great example of somebody who is aware of the deeper realm.
Yes.
Or at least he became aware of it.
100%. Yeah. Now, and this has nothing to do with the question, but it's probably, I feel like we need to just mention this. Because this came up, I was telling you about my trip to St. Louis, just very briefly in the car. And after the event, there's some really well-known people. Like, do you know who Darryl Strawberry is?
No.
Oh, okay. He's a famous New York Yankee. He spoke at this event.
Oh, yeah. Darryl Strawberry. Yeah.
Center fielder for the New York Yankees.
Yeah, I do know of him.
He's a preacher now.
Yeah.
There's some big names. Cool. So anyways, we were all in the speaker's cabin afterwards. And these guys, they wanted to hear from me. They were really impressed with the talk, and they had all these questions.
So cool.
So I'm like, I don't even know how it worked out. I'm sitting on the table, and they're all like sitting around, like asking me questions.
Yeah.
I was really humbling. And this one guy's a relationship expert, and he was talking about something about this kind of like disclosure thing. Yeah. And I was telling him about, I kind of believe in like the relationship bank account. He's like, you know about the bank account thing? And I'm like, yeah, dude, like I totally agree with it. And he's like, oh, okay. So I'm like, okay, you get the relationship bank account. So let me lay this out for you in our context. You're always putting deposits or it's withdrawals from the account, right? And obviously we want to put deposits in as much as possible, but you're going to withdraw from time to time. But when you have something secret behind closed doors, like a porn addiction or an attraction to someone or a lust that you're really ashamed of, and your partner doesn't know, it only ends in one of two ways. It's either you confess or you get caught, but only one of them's a deposit. Right? Both of them are a withdrawal, but only one's a deposit. He was like, whoa. Yeah. He was like, you need to be on my podcast. So I'm supposed to be on his podcast in California in the fall. Cool. Yeah. But the point is that these little things go a long way. So you're like, I didn't even think about that angle, but this guy is married, and I wonder what kind of liberation he'd get if he was talking to his wife about some of the temptations he's dealing with. Yep.
Yeah, it's the biggest. Also one of the biggest lies, right? If you tell her it's going to X, Y, or Z, and there's some degree where the scatter disclosure is really painful, and you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But I've seen it where guys do a real disclosure, and it's well developed and done accordingly to a plan, and it can create more pain in the moment, but it's a sense of godly pain where it can be healed.
Yes.
When there's clarity, there's a new foundation to stand on, there's a new development of potential trust. Yeah. It turns into, it goes from like worldly endless suffering to a sense of godly suffering.
Yeah.
And that's it's scary. Yeah. But it's actually part of trusting the Lord.
It's beautiful. Yeah. It really is. Yeah. Okay, let's see if we can sneak in a couple more right here. All right, this is from George. How do we stop porn from being replaced by other destructive behaviors once we address the root issues? Yeah. That's actually a good question, yeah.
That's a great question.
Yeah, because you and I have seen this before, right? Where guys quit porn, but then they end up basically replacing the addiction with something else. I remember John Deloney, when I interviewed him for the podcast, I asked him, like, what's the worst addiction? Yep. You know, I wasn't trying to back him into a corner. I just kind of wanted to ask him like a pointed question and see what he'd come up with. And he said the worst addictions are the ones that are celebrated. Workaholism, fitness, you know, those things that they're good, but maybe they're not actually that good for you because of your relationship to them. So I think that's what he's getting at here is, you know, there's other destructive behaviors that I know I can jump to, quitting porn. How do I avoid doing that?
So in our realm, like pornography and masturbation are often tied together, but there are a lot of guys that they're separate. Yes. And we see guys quit porn and then struggle with masturbation. And what I've seen is porn is where guys feel powerful and certain, and even a sense of, it could be a sense of like a letting out of aggression or a sense of dominance, like kind of all ties into power. Yeah. But you can kind of see there's some ties that make porn appealing. Yeah. With masturbation, when it ends up being a solo act, very often I'd say every time it could be something else, but it's always comfort. There's like porn is power and certainty. Masturbation, I've just seen it over and over and over again. It's comfort related. So when I've seen that, I then look at food, gambling, video games. What is the core of why that's an addiction?
Right, because food, gambling, some of those things aren't necessarily going to offer power, but they'll provide comfort.
Yeah, gambling's probably power. Video games is going to be like, I think video games for a lot of guys is like guaranteed win. Yeah. Which could be power, could be certainty.
Okay, I see. So it could be either or.
Yeah. So I think for a lot, like even masturbation, I think there's several reasons. I believe there is sort of a bell curve where somebody stops watching porn, then maybe they overeat a little bit. But if they're growing in awareness, they realize, oh, that's happening. Yeah. And they might watch sports too much. And they're because they're learning how to stop being addictive in nature, not just in behavior. I think there is kind of a bell curve of like getting off of being highly addictive. Yeah. And I don't think there's shame in that. I think it's just natural where you've been addicted for 20, 30 years. Yeah. Give yourself a good year, like give yourself some time. Yeah. But when guys aren't aware, this is the trap. Yeah. So
you think you're clean, but you've just replaced something with another.
And that's usually where guys don't really follow a process of healing. Yes. They just try and quit a behavior.
Yeah, and I think this is also why, and this is something that I think we could probably be even more strong about in our community, is when you start to reach your desired outcome, you're not watching pornography anymore, you're not masturbating anymore. Yeah. It's so easy to take your foot off the gas. Yeah. And we've seen guys do this before, where it's like, hey man, you're doing awesome. We really think you'd benefit from another 4 months. And they're like, oh, no, I think I'm in a good place. I think I'm good. Yeah. And we just know all too well, like, yeah, you are probably good. Yeah. But man, another 4 months of you just continuing the work. Like you said, you kind of got through the harder part of the curve, but there is still another part. And if you can just guarantee that momentum goes in the right direction, you'll probably never look back. But at this point where you are, there's still like a bit of a teeter-totter. And I think, I think what helps people to do this is you go after the root issues and then you stay in the momentum as long as possible. That's what ensures that even if you do, like you're saying, even if you do end up, okay, yeah, you're probably going to the gym a little bit too much, like that, there might not be the greatest relationship. That's okay. You're figuring things out. You can be kind to yourself. But if you do it with that supportive community and you got some guidance along the way, you can just make sure that you course correct and eventually get to that place you want to be where the roots are taken care of, you're not watching porn, and you also have healthy relationships with food and fitness and whatever else it might be.
And I think there's always going to be some vulnerability of sin that we have, some thorn in the flesh, but that's not an excuse. It's not a justification of that's why I just keep doing it. It's wow, I really realize I have a lack of being, not just like being accepted, but believing I'm accepted. Like I really struggle to believe I'm accepted. So when I go to the gym, there's that false sufficiency. And that's like, the more we can name that, that's actually what leads to healing. I really believe that, because that's, the Lord wants to just enter into those places and heal.
And it's a beautiful thing when he does.
Oh man. I want more.
Come on. Okay, let's see. Sean's running on Czech Republic time here. So
what time we got here?
Yeah, it's probably getting late for you, man.
5 a.m.
Your body clock is feeling it. Okay, I think we got maybe a couple more left. How can I balance, this is from Eric, how can I balance striving for high standards with managing stress and anxiety that come from feeling like I'm not meeting my own expectations? Okay, so how do I balance keeping those standards, but then it's creating stress because I'm not meeting the standards, I guess? I really resonate with that question. I am that person for sure. I mean, I can lead with this one, I think a little bit. I think, I think ideals and standards are moving goalposts. And I think that's been a tough thing for me to accept in my 30s. I think in your 20s, you have all these ideals, and then you suddenly realize they were exactly that, they're ideals. And I've been very tempted at times, as I've had more reality checks in my 30s, to just throw out my ideals. But I think that'd be a huge mistake, because the thing I've realized is that someone who has high standards, that should always gives you direction of like, okay, I'm going here. Like, you've even seen this in the way I'm leading the business. Like, some of the goals I have. And that's where we're going. But man, we've tried a bunch of stuff in the last year that just have not worked, And that if it's about hitting the standard, then it's a failure. If it's about hitting the standard, then we wasted time or we wasted money on whatever. But if this is just the direction I'm going in, I've still taken a step that way, even if something didn't work. So I think it's having that, it is compassion for sure, but I think for me, the word I would actually prefer is, it's like curiosity. It's giving myself permission to just be curious about my standards and how I'm gonna get there. And that makes it a little bit more of an adventure than instead of a pressure cooker where I gotta hit my standards, and if I don't get there, I'm a failure. So I think psychologically, you gotta find something that injects a little bit of fun into it, or takes the pressure off, whether that's compassion or curiosity or whatever it is. And the other thing as well, and this is something I think I've only would be able to experience just going a little bit further in life, is despite some of the shortcomings or some of the failed projects in the business the last year or so, let's not forget, like, we've grown considerably the last few years. Incredible success, and that's actually really helped me, because I remember when I first started, I thought, man, if I ever got to the point I'm at now, I'd just be set. But now here I am, and now the standards have changed. So that's what I mean by moving goalposts. Like, this is always going to be a thing. And I think it's a lot more about the journey. It's a lot more about looking back and seeing, man, look at how far we've come. God is so good. Look at how much we've grown. Knowing that those are the things that actually allow you to move more towards your standards and your goals anyways. It's not looking, we've been talking about this in our staff meetings, it's not about looking at the gap of where could I be. It's actually looking at the gain, like, how much have I gained in this process? That's amazing. And I know if I continue to keep a heart of gratitude, it will propel me forward.
Can you read the question one more time?
How can I balance striving for high standards with managing the stress and anxiety that come from feeling like I'm not meeting my own expectations.
Yeah, I think your answer is amazing in terms of what guys can do really practically, and we'll just keep hammering it home. Like, is there some root pain there that have caused that to be the perception of success?
Yeah.
Like, do you really believe that's how God views it? Because that's a big problem
Good point.
in the way we operate. It's
Yes.
like, I feel like this is true.
Yeah.
That God will X, Y, or Z more
Yes.
when I X, Y, or Z, or I feel closer to God. Well, I've had guys tell me, like, I only really feel close to God when I pray when I'm laying on the floor. Like, I don't feel him any other time. I'm like, that's like, there's some perception. Like,
Yeah.
like you've created this like box you have to live in.
Yeah.
And that it's like, that's what Jesus said to the woman at the well. Like, you won't need to be at the temple anymore.
Yeah.
Because we'll worship in spirit and truth.
Yes.
And like, I think you and I would both have this, right? And that's what keeps us like high driving, and we are effective in the work we do. But there's challenges there as well.
Yes.
And we got to ask, like, what are the perceptions that were made and built through the lens of our father, or having to be self-sufficient or self-soothing because mom wasn't able to soothe.
True.
And that's the perception of, when I hit my goals, I'm accepted.
Yeah.
When I finally do this, I'm enough.
Yeah.
And that's where inner child work is so powerful.
Yeah.
So there's everything you said, amazing, and then there's the root stuff, which
Yes.
is like, that's what's going to be the longevity of the healing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yep. Really good. Okay, one last question here. How can I overcome persistent lustful thoughts and fantasies even after gaining freedom from pornography so they don't lead me back to relapse? That's interesting. See, I think maybe this is a bit of a distinction between freedom and sobriety. Sounds like sobriety from pornography.
Yeah.
I think freedom would probably be a change in the persistent lustful thoughts and fantasies. I would have to think.
Yep.
And this is why what we're talking about, like, your fantasies are gifts.
Yeah.
You know, as weird as that sounds, I'm not saying that to encourage them, but if they happen, let's use the intel there. What were the needs that were being met? What are the specifics? What story is being told in this fantasy that maybe ties into your origin story or your inner child? There's things you can dig into, and I think if you're doing that root level work, this question changes, because I think in addition to freedom from pornography, you're probably going to notice a shift in your temptations and your fantasies and everything else.
I think like this is the key, is like, when somebody tells me, you know, I've quit pornography, but this is still happening, I always have to ask, what does it mean that you've quit pornography?
Right.
Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's a nice idea.
Yeah.
And we have Every Man's Battle and these purity culture books that say, like, the goal is to stop the behavior.
Yes.
And when people shoot for that, as you just said, like, they can start celebrating something that doesn't really mean anything.
Right.
I've had guys, you know, they're sober for 2 years. The sobriety was just pure white knuckling. It's just worth nothing.
Yeah.
And they're so mad when they relapse.
Yes.
And like, like, I'd be mad too, bro.
Yeah.
I wish you would have relapsed 2 years ago and realized this isn't the way.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to bring guys off of that almost like cloud they're on of like, I'm doing really well, and I can't believe this is still happening. And that's just kind of a reality check for guys. Like, you will be better off because you notice that these things are diminishing. You're not better off because you're not watching porn.
Yeah.
You're better off because your heart is shifting.
Yes.
So that's like the biggest challenge for guys, is like, that's why guys counting streaks or whatever it might be is just so ineffective. Because they're looking at, I didn't watch porn today, rather than, wow, like, I had a chance to lust over that woman and I didn't. I actually prayed for her, or I redirected that energy of anger at my boss and I didn't actually think about taking the aggression out on a woman. I thought about, how can I, you know, go home and make dinner for my wife, or whatever it might be. Right? You start to realize, like, whoa, those are indicators of somebody who's growing more like Christ.
Yeah, exactly. Sobriety really is just the behavioral report. And I think freedom is a shift of the heart, right? It's this gospel rooted, something has shifted in me and I'm not who I used to be. And that's more expensive. Like, sobriety is cheap, right? But freedom's expensive. It's going to cost you something.
And cheap, not in a derogatory way, but just the reality of, like, that's the first stepping stone.
Exactly.
That's the end goal. you're gonna feel like you're kind of robbed and cheated.
Yes.
And freedom, like I think it's pretty well researched, like 2 to 5 years to really like rewire the brain, renew the mind, and
cement that
for me,
change.
man, it was like right at the last day of the 5 years, man. I had a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
My journey wasn't like the 2-year journey, and I don't know many guys that are.
Yeah.
But the whole journey is a blessing along the way. It's not like finally 5 years and I feel good now. It's like it was amazing, like week by week, month by month. And that's kind of an indicator that you are healthy.
Yeah.
It's like every month it's like, whoa, I'm handling this differently. And whoa, like my wife's rebuilding trust with me, and wow, like new friendships are fostering.
Yeah.
That's like, if you're not seeing indicators of fruit, we gotta check what's really going on.
Yes.
Like, is the plant really growing?
Yes.
Or are you just really putting up some sort of facade?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's I've had to do that in other areas of my life.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And so I think for this person, maybe the last thing I'll just say is, you did something to reach this point of being free from pornography or sober from pornography. Maybe we'll slightly rephrase that with our language. So now it's just an invitation to go one step deeper, one step further. Yeah. And the nice thing is, I actually like working with clients like this, because we've had lots of clients who've come to us, hey, I haven't watched pornography in a while, but I know at a root level there's more work to be done. Yeah. What's nice with these clients is they already have momentum. Mm-hmm. So you're not starting from ground zero. You're not trying to give that car a push and get the wheels in motion. The wheels are in motion. They just need some help getting into a higher gear. Yeah. And it's actually a lot easier to do that when the car's already moving. Very true. So I think this guy's actually had a huge advantage. Yep. And he just needs the right help. Yeah. He needs some support along the way, and this could change very quickly for him. Yeah.
If someone, even if they are white knuckling, has enough willpower to do that, like there's something there to say you care about this. Yes. And that's important.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. But look, if you want this kind of advice, this kind of guidance, this is what Shawn and I do in Deep Clean Inner Circle every single week. We help guys like you get clarity so you can move forward in your recovery. Check out the link in the description if you want to learn more about it. We would love to see you in there. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one.